So, hello, good afternoon, and welcome to episode 38 of The Renny Show. Hello, Jenny.
Good afternoon. The sun's out here and it makes such a difference, doesn't it? When the sun is shining, it's chilly,
Definitely.
but the sky is, well, kind of blue, but the sun's out, so it's lovely.
Fantastic. Well, we both hope that the sun is out wherever you are and that you're all staying safe in the snow slash slush slash ice, whatever you happen to have near you. We've got some remnants of snow left, but it's all a bit icy and hard now, so not so good for snowmen anymore. But yeah. So today's show then, it's me and thee, and we're going to do our usual and have some surprise questions. So if you're listening, please do feel free to chip into the conversation, make comments. We'd love to know what you think about the things we talk about. So let's dive straight in. Okay, so Jenny, the first question I'm going to ask you today is because it's something that has been quite topical for me recently on a couple of different occasions, and so I'd love to know what you think about it. So obviously these days we use, electronic banking, everything's online, and everyone tends to use contactless payments wherever we go. And I was speaking to someone who basically still will pretty much only use cash all the time. So they've always got cash in the purse, kind of thing, which is something that I sometimes forget to do. And then you need some cash and you haven't got any. And it's whoops, forgot, because you rely on the card. And there's also a chip shop near us that they don't say they will only take cash, but they have a sign up saying
Prefer it.
we prefer cash. Please, can you pay in cash? Because then we're not losing some of that money to, card machine charges. So, with all of that in mind, do you still carry cash?
Yes, I do. I always have. I think it goes back to, when you were young,
Yeah,
when I was young, and you always had that emergency tenner,
yeah,
fiver, whatever it was, tucked in a secret pocket of your purse, your jacket, so that if you ever got stuck, you missed the last bus home, you always had your taxi fare
yeah,
in your, available, so you'd never be stuck without a taxi. So I think it's a hangover from then, because and quite often, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I do change my handbag quite a lot. And so, and then I forget that I've put little secret fivers in various compartments. So when I come to reuse my handbag, I'm always pleasantly surprised because I think I found a fiver.
fantastic.
So I do have a small, not a lot, but I just have a little bit. And I say usually it's my emergency money. Because like many other people, most of the time I use tapping online stuff. I feel very modern because I've just worked out how to put my card on my phone so
Oh,
I can do Apple Pay now,
yeah,
which is dangerous, isn't it? So I think we are obviously going very much towards a cashless society, aren't we? But I'm very fond of cash,
yeah,
and my grandchildren still love, to be given pennies, and the sparklier the better.
yeah,
Posy doesn't really mind the value, although she's getting more savvy. She wouldn't mind if it was a penny, as long as it was shiny. Whereas now, of course, she's learnt that pound coins have a higher value.
yes. It doesn't take
You
long for
can't
them
get
to
away
learn
with
that, does it?
No, you can't get away with a penny anymore. But I'm a great believer in the power of both. And for lots of people, um, bank accounts aren't always an option because you need a permanent address,
Yeah,
and for many people, sadly, in our society, having a bank account isn't always an easy option. So lots of people survive on cash. So I think those of us who have bank accounts, have a certain privilege that we should remember. But it is nice, isn't it, to be able to have both. And certainly my dad is very wary of online banking. He's convinced
Yes,
that,
many people are.
somebody is going to steal all his money.
Yeah, I'm sure he's not alone there. I do know other. There are members of my family who would rather not use any of the online payments or online banking or all that sort of thing. I think, for me personally, I'm very much the same in the way that I like to have, a tenner or something tucked away as it's that mindset of having that emergency cash should you need it kind of thing, because I don't regularly have cash on me and I don't tend to pay for things in cash, but I like to have that backup just in case. And even if I've got that sort of tucked into my phone, I won't choose to use it. I will still choose to use my card unless I absolutely need to use the cash kind of thing, and then I'll replace it and make sure there's another one there. But I think for some people, like you say, accessibility in terms of cash versus card and bank account, for some people, cash works much better for them, and it helps them to be able to budget more effectively. And there are so many plus sides to cash, and I know there are a lot of people that are quite upset when you go in somewhere, a shop for example, and you can't pay with cash. They say it's card only, and I guess I feel that it's nicer to be able to have the option so that it doesn't exclude anybody. I fear that if you go one way or the other and you say only cash or only card, you're potentially excluding some people. So I would always rather that there was the option. And we've got a comment actually from Sarah Fox, who says, I always have cash. When we travelled around Europe for 5 months, we carried emergency euros as cash in case our bank cards got lost or stolen, and because some venues wouldn't accept cards. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of us have kind of grown up where that was the sensible thing to do. Whereas these days, the younger generation, perhaps the millennials or whatever you call them, they're perhaps not as used to carrying cash because they've all got their cards on their phone, like you've just said that you've done. So it's a really interesting one, I think. But I do think cash should be available, and I'm a bit nervous of the fact that we're being pushed into being a cashless society, which isn't necessarily a good thing, particularly in terms of accessibility for some people. So yeah, I guess we'll see.
And just one really quick story. So I was in a shop yesterday, and the lady had just come off the phone to the fraud squad, and she was saying that she said, "Oh, we don't." We had an issue with a Scottish £50 note, and she said it's been a nightmare. And I said, "Can I stop you?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Yes, I know this. I know that I go into this shop a lot." And I said, "It isn't the Scottish note that's the issue; it's the £50. So please don't confuse the two, because Scottish currency is legal UK tender. It is no different from Welsh banknotes, Irish. It is legal tender. The issue is the £50-ness. It's not the Scottishness." And I said it's really easy to kind of conflate the two together. And lots of places don't take £50 notes because they are apparently, who knew, the easiest to forge. And she went, "You're so right." She said, "That's exactly that's exactly right." So I have, when I used to live in Scotland and I used to come down to England, and obviously in Scotland we have Scottish notes. And so many places in England would make a huge fuss and say we don't take with it, it's foreign currency. It's like, no, it's not. Please don't. It's so frustrating. So any shopkeepers about, Scottish currency is UK. It's valid in the UK. It is perfectly legal tender. If you're worried about fraud, then it's the £50 notes. They're the easiest to forge. So it's not the Scottishness, it's the £50 noteness.
Yeah.
There you go, that's a little rant. My soapbox for the day.
Excellent.
And my first
Well, I have to say that the £50 note is never something that's particularly an issue for me. I don't think I've ever seen a £50 note. I'm not sure, but yeah,
I have seen them, but they don't. Yes, they don't cross my palm very often.
no.
Um, so my first question for you, Rach, is what keeps you grounded?
What keeps me grounded? Interesting. Okay, I'm just going to get that to pop up on the screen. Oh gosh, there's probably lots of different ways to answer that question. I think trying to see things from different perspectives is what often keeps me grounded. I I may have actually been heard to describe myself the other day as the queen of seeing things from other people's perspective, because I do try very hard to make sure that I'm seeing situations from perspectives of others, not just myself. But I think that's a really good way of keeping yourself grounded, and just it's almost having that sort of, you know, the checks and balances that help you to see, okay, so is this the right decision? You know, am I making it a common sense decision here? You know, is this pie in the sky, or is it sensible? You know, what would someone else do? What might someone else think? And whilst, you know, I'd want the decision to always be my own, I think thinking of other perspectives can be a really good way to keep you grounded with things. And I mean, the other key thing I would say, and I have a funny inkling that you might agree, is to keep connected. And which again, I think is related to those other perspectives, because when you're connected with those that you love and care about, you know, they will offer you those different perspectives anyway. But that connection, I think, you know, human connection just helps you to remember who you are and, you know, why you're doing what you're doing, sort of thing. So yeah, I guess those are the two biggest things for me. What about for you?
Surprise.
That.
Similarly, I think my two things are purpose. Purpose and values are really the things that
Yeah.
and that aligning them, isn't it? I think when it can be easy to be to have your values kind of pushed to one side sometimes.
Yeah.
And you know, if you're following a purpose, you can get you can get sidetracked, and usually in my experience something will pull you back, you'll get that, you know, that niggle,
Yeah.
the thing at the back of your neck, the kind of nudge in your tummy that kind of says, oh, this isn't quite, if it, you know, it's a bit like, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
always, but 90% of the time. And I think so that, yeah, that purpose and values, are they all in alignment, in order that I'm kind of keeping me grounded.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. I think the connection, human connection, is so important, isn't it? And I think of human connections almost like, the when you're in a hot air balloon and the sandbags
Yeah.
sandbags on the outside that
Yeah.
keep
Ballast.
you kind of, they don't stop you moving, but they just
Yeah.
keep you balanced.
Yeah.
um
Definitely.
and I think that those connections are really, really important. Uh, when we lead such busy lives, and there
Yeah.
is so much going on, and there are so many ways in which we are dragged, pulled, pushed.
Yes.
you know, or motivated of our own accord. There are so many ways that we're kind of propelled into the busyness of life. So actually having things that just keep us level-ish.
Yeah. 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 And I have to say, I'm a huge fan of, getting back to your values. I think we all tend to have a pretty good idea of what our values are, but when you've done work on that, as I have, and as I'm sure you have, and many people listening probably will have done as well, you start to really understand not just what those values are, but why they're so important to you. And it almost, I want to say, it adds meat to the bones. When you really look more deeply at what those values are and what they mean to you, um, that's a fantastic way to keep grounded, because it will make it obvious to you if something is grating or not sitting right. It can help you to understand why, and then that will obviously inform your decision. So it's, yeah, I'm all for that. I think values are really important.
And they guide our behaviour, don't they? Our values,
Of
whether
course.
we're intentionally or
Yeah.
unintentionally. So, as you say, the more that we connect with our values, and we kind of get to choose them.
Yeah.
I think we get to choose them. Revisit, get my teeth in, revisit my values on a fairly regular basis,
Yes.
just to double check. Sometimes I swap the odd one, the core ones stay the same, but the
Yeah.
odd outside one, I think, oh, this is really important in my life at this moment in time, so I'm going to add that in.
Yeah.
And they absolutely guide my way of being, my way of showing up, my behaviour. So when things are out of alignment, it
Yes.
gives you a really, really clear understanding as to why.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
I think they really can evolve. And sometimes you just find a different word that just feels more appropriate, perhaps because something's happened or you've experienced something. And
Mm.
the value might essentially be very similar, but you've found a different word for it that resonates more and means more to you. And so I think, like you've said about regularly revisiting them, I think that's a really good idea. Yeah. Guess what? We're on the same page again. The
Yeah.
old thing.
I think people won't believe, but honestly, and we say it often, don't we? That
Yeah.
these questions, we have absolutely no idea what the other is going to ask us. So that this is all off the cuff,
Yeah.
live, raw and real. So
Yeah.
absolutely. So hit me with your next one, Rach.
Right. That sounds like a song. Okay. So my next question for you, Jenny, is about coaching approach. What is your approach to coaching?
Oh, well, obviously, brilliance coaching is my approach in a nutshell. But what does that mean? I fundamentally, because I do lots of different kinds of coaching, so depending on what clients want. So sometimes it's a career coaching thing, sometimes it's executive coaching with senior leaders, sometimes it's with young people who are just starting out. So that's
Yeah.
about kind of preparation for life coaching. Sometimes I do what we call transition coaching. So when people are moving from one particular way of being to another. So I think the thing that keeps them all together is the brilliance bit. And my fundamental approach is that I believe that every single individual is brilliant, whatever that brilliance looks like for them. And so my approach is around holding space and asking really good questions so that they can reclaim it, unbury it, dust it off, buff it, um, and find what it is for them that means that they can show up as unapologetically them in whatever sphere that we're working.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. There's lots of words there that won't surprise you, that resonate very much for me in what I do. I was talking to someone yesterday, and my approach is very much about kind of centered around the belief that everyone deserves to believe in themselves. Everyone deserves to have that. And I view it as a almost, the foundations of the house. So if you cultivate strong self-belief, that's the foundations of the house, so that the bricks that you build on top are going to be stronger. It doesn't mean that everything is then suddenly perfect. You all know what we think about perfection, but if I was to liken it to a ship, it doesn't sway as much, it doesn't sway as far, and perhaps doesn't sway for as long if you've got those strong foundations in place. So for me, it's definitely about helping people to understand themselves, and obviously that's very much a fundamental part of coaching for all coaches, no matter what type of coach you are. That's fundamentally that we're trying to help people uncover who they really are, and therefore understand what they really want, and perhaps then work out how to get to it. That there's so many different styles of doing that, isn't there? And I think it can sometimes, I know we've spoken about this before on the show, but I think it can be quite confusing sometimes for people to understand the different approaches that different coaches will take, because obviously lots of coaches will use a blend of coaching, mentoring, other things you can throw in the mix as well, training, teaching. So it's just understanding, I think, what the approach is of any individual coach, and it's always worth taking the time to understand that, which is why conversations like this are brilliant. It's why I love, once I've been to a networking meeting, I love having those further conversations with people one-on-one, because then you can really make sure that, what you said in your 60 seconds of this is what I do, you can make sure that they actually understand what that approach really is and what it really means. So yeah, it's very useful.
And I think most coaches have a sort of introductory conversation, don't they? Because for me, the thing about coaching is the fit, and you can have
Yes.
many coaches who are doing the same thing, but they'll do it differently, slightly, because of their personality, because of their approach, and therefore it's finding a good fit for you. At the point that you are at, that you're seeking coaching, and all of us, I'm a great believer in that all coaches should have a coach.
Yes, me too.
Because it's an ongoing development, and
Yeah,
you,
it's a journey,
as
not a
we
destination.
as we live our lives, I'm sure you do too. I coach myself on a daily basis, but I also have an external coach, and that supervision around making sure that our practice is under scrutiny, so that we are keeping ourselves up to date, and making sure that our practice is in line with our values and our purpose. So absolutely important to check those kind of things out when you're having conversations.
Yeah, definitely. Fantastic. Right, so what's your next question for me?
So my next question is a top tip, Rachel. So what's and classically on a day like today, so my top tip is, my question is around top tips. What's your top tip for getting through the dark days? I'm not a huge fan of winter. I find the short time of daylight and the longer dark bits, I have to be intentional about coping with those. So what's your top tip for getting through when the sun isn't shining like it wasn't yesterday?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's lots of things you can do, and I think it is key to, the message is it's about looking after yourself, which I'm sure everyone would agree with. There are some really quite simple things you can do to get through the dark days, in terms of looking after your body, making sure that you're sleeping properly, getting the right nutrition, staying hydrated. That take care of the vessel that's carrying you through these dark days, so to speak. perhaps make sure you're keeping up with your vitamin D, because of course in winter months we really struggle. We don't get enough sunlight on our skin in order to get enough vitamin D. So I would say it's, you know, my top tip would be looking after, like I say, the vessel that gets you through these things. So try and not stay up all night watching Netflix. I may have done a bit of that last night.
We were also, I was binge watching The Lincoln Lawyer.
Oh, I haven't watched that one. I might have to add it to the list. Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah. But to just pay attention to looking after yourself. So nutrition, hydration, exercise, and just we all like the body's natural craving, if you like, is not to go into hibernation as such, but we naturally, because it's winter, we almost subconsciously want to bulk up a bit and hunker down for winter to get through the tough months where there might not be as much food available. I know it's a bit different these days, compared to caveman time perhaps, but to embrace the things that are going to help your body to give you its best. So what would you share? What's your top tip?
I'm a great fan of lights.
Yes.
So lights and candles. Obviously I don't leave candles burning unattended.
Very important tip there, folks.
Yes, but I do love twinkly lights. Yes. And twinkly lights and candles, because candles give off such a wonderful glow, don't they? And yes. And they smell lovely as well, if you as long as you get the right ones that suit your preferences. But yes, and flowers. Okay. Somebody gave me a tip long time ago about buying myself flowers.
Yeah.
In tough times, and I've stuck to that. And it doesn't matter if it's it doesn't have to be a big posh bouquet. It might just be £1 worth of tulips from the supermarket, but just to have that colour somewhere where you can see them. And remember that spring's always coming, isn't it? Spring's coming, the flowers will be out, and just remembering that you've got those flowers, and they've got some great supermarkets have some great options these days, don't they? So flowers and lights, along with all your fabulous tips, of course, which are brilliant. But flowers and lights, and I think probably that all adds to the self-care bit, doesn't it?
Very much. It's all about trying to kind of lift the psyche, I suppose, isn't it? Lift your energy levels, which might be feeling depleted because of the dark days, so to speak. It's all about things to try and lift that again.
And there's something very magical, isn't there, about twinkly lights?
Oh yes.
Or is that just me?
Oh no, that's not just you. I love, once we get to the 1st of December, putting up all the Christmas decks and having lights on every evening as it gets dark. And I really like the warm white lights as opposed to the bright white.
Warm white.
I just love sitting there and just soaking in the glow of the lights. It's lovely. Yeah, I love twinkly lights.
And one of the it was actually in lockdown that a friend of mine said, I'm obviously we weren't going anywhere, were we? And she said, I'm putting my lights up early in November because of the twinkly. They're not Christmas lights anymore, they're just lights, lights for dark days. And she said, no, I'm leaving them up in January, February, until so she said, I don't call them Christmas lights anymore, they're lights for dark days. And she said, and then when when it gets dark at 4 o'clock, I switched them all on, and I got this lovely twinkly. You can't help but be transported back to magic times, can you? So
love it.
We'd love some photographs of your twinkly lights, if you've got any twinkly lights that you use. send us a picture. We'd love that.
Okay, so my last question for you, another topical one based on the fact that a lot of us have had some snow this week, and yesterday morning I was forced to vaguely willingly, but not much, forced very early in the morning to be out in the front garden with the youngest, who insisted that before she went to breakfast club she had to be able to get up and build a snowman. And who was I to argue? It was pretty cold, but yeah, who was I to argue? So with that in mind, snowball fights, yes or no?
I'm not a fan of snow, but
Well, yes, I do know you're very much a spring and summer person, aren't you?
I'm not a fan of snow, but I love a snowball fight. I love when there's lots of snow and it's proper snow and it's not icy, so it doesn't
Yeah,
kind of, give you a head injury when you're hit in the face with it. But
yeah,
I love sled. I have such happy memories of sledging and snowballs. Sledging on. We used to use fertilizer bags with straw in. They were probably highly dangerous, but that's what we used to use when we lived, say, in the hills of Scotland. And I have many happy memories of. And I think it's the letting go, isn't it? It's the release.
yes,
Snowball fights. It's funny. As long as you're not hurting anybody, it's
yeah,
funny. It's fun. It's silly. It's that playing with that childlike simplicity of life before it got complicated. And so I'm not a fan of snow, but if it's going to snow properly, then sledging and snowball fights, I'm all in.
yeah, yeah,
So is
yeah.
that a yes and no?
Yeah, no, that's. You can have that. Yeah, I'll let you have that.
Can I have that? Yeah.
I do love snow. Absolutely love snow. I was very fortunate to go on skiing holidays from a very young age. So I've just always loved snow, and I think snow is one of those, because we don't get lots of it generally in the UK, and we don't tend to get it that lasts very long. It might last a day, a week, but we don't tend to get it where it lasts the whole winter. Like you might get in a lot of other countries. So there's always a certain excitement that comes with snow when it falls in the UK, albeit there's also a good
Briefly.
danger element because we're not very good at dealing with snow in this country. But I love the excitement of when it snows. And for me, the snowball fight thing is very much about releasing the inner child, which lots of people aren't always happy to do, and it's such a healthy thing to be able to do, to let the inner child go and just play and be carefree, like we all were when we were children. And so yeah, snowball fights represent something really fun and really free. So I'm definitely a huge fan. I won't say I will love it if I get one in the face. Um, but if I'm wrapped up, got my hat, scarf, gloves, coat on, then game on. Let's do it. Yeah, I'm all for it. Yeah, we definitely agree again.
Also, it's mine. My third question is, this is slightly random, but probably, um, what has been your best Christmas present ever? And you can have one that you've received or one that you've given.
Ooh, wow. Okay. Gosh. I mean, the instant thing that comes to mind, and don't get me wrong, there have been lots of wonderful things over the years, but the Christmas when I was 5 and I was given Dapple the rocking horse, I just I still have Dapple. Dapple has been refurbished. When we lived in the Falklands, Dapple went with us on the ship. He was carted there. Um, uh, yeah, I still feel a very, very close attachment to that rocking horse. That was a really special gift. I loved horses as a kid. I don't really know why, because I didn't ride horses. I just had a bit of a fascination with them, because they're just beautiful creatures. And yeah, there are so many special and nice memories attached when I think of Dapple. Whether it's me actually riding on Dapple, or I can remember trying to plait Dapple's mane in the way that proper horses have their manes plaited, and trying to learn how to use reins like properly, how proper riders would hold them. So yeah, lots and lots of very fond memories. That's definitely the first one that comes to mind. What about for you?
Well, mine's a very silly one, but it's one of those things that, and it was a stocking filler from my
Yeah.
mum, and it was cooling trays, baking cooling
Okay.
racks.
Yeah.
That's stacked,
Ooh.
and so they stack on top. They stack on top of each other, and she apologized for giving me something, kind of very pedestrian almost.
Yeah.
And I said at the time, I said, "Oh no, that's it." It was a really thoughtful present, because my kitchen was quite small, and I did still do a lot of baking, and so to have something that didn't take up too much space but went up rather than out, so
Yeah.
I could stack biscuits and cakes and things in a stack and
Yeah.
cool them, was just amazing. And I said to her at the time, I said, I will think of you every time I bake. And so thank you. I really appreciate them. And I think I still have them. I still use them. And I do that. I think of her every time I use them. And I think why is it so special? Because it's not, it's not glamorous. It's not, but it was incredibly useful. And also, it was something that demonstrated how well she knew me.
Yeah. And that's
And she
priceless, isn't it?
knew and I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's that gift that keeps on giving, because it was
Yeah.
so it was so useful, and demonstrated, that kind of, oh, that's just the thing.
Yeah.
And so I thought it would be an interesting thing when people are thinking about, maybe you're one of those people who've done their Christmas shopping already and it's all wrapped up and done, or maybe
Not
you're like
me.
me, who's just beginning to think about, oh gosh, it's December quite soon. I should
Yeah.
probably get my act together. But yes, it's that thing about, so sometimes it isn't the size, it isn't the value. The
Yeah.
value is in the is in the knowing, isn't it? The
Yeah. The
knowing of
thought
the
behind
person,
it.
the thoughtfulness behind it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that.
Absolutely fantastic. I love that. Yeah, that resonates very much for me. So already we're at the end of the latest show. I don't know where the time's gone, but it's been fantastic. Thank you for your company, Jenny, as always. If you're listening, then thank you very much for joining us. We will be back in 2 weeks, and we have a very exciting guest who happens to be Fiona Scott, who is just a PR guru, I'm going to call her, from Scott Media. She's absolutely wonderful, and does incredible things to support businesses and celebrities and sports people and all sorts of people, to put themselves out there and get their PR done and dusted in the most brilliant way. So do join us again in 2 weeks, where we'll be live in conversation with Fiona. But until then, take good care of yourselves. Jenny, over to you.
And yes, thank you as ever. It's always such a joy to chat. We hope we have entertained, inspired, and been brilliant. And I can't wait to talk with Fiona and chat all things PR. Marvelous. So we will see you in 2 weeks. I'm sure that time will go by in a flash.
It
So
will. It
until
will.
then, take care, stay warm, stay
Yeah.
safe, be inspiring and be brilliant. And we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye for now.
Bye.